Hello and welcome to today's Professional Development and Education Committee webinar from COSIDA. And our topic today is adjusting on the fly, how to prepare for sudden competition disruptions, cancellations, and scheduling issues. It's a very timely conversation as everyone is dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic right now. And what it's doing to schools nationally is forcing them to make adjustments. Pivot on the fly has been a theme of the year, and we'll discuss with four of our panels today how they've done just that. First of all, the 2021 COSIDA Professional Development and Continuing Education webinar series is presented by Capital One. Thank you to our corporate partners from Capital One for their continued investment in our membership. My name is Ira Thor. I'm the Senior Director of University Communications at New Jersey City University, where I was previously the school's SID for the last 20 years. I still freelance at a half dozen schools here in New Jersey, and so far all 5 basketball games I've been scheduled to work have been postponed due to COVID-19 positive cases. So while that's an inconvenience, our 4 panels today are in the trenches dealing with competition disruptions, cancellations, and scheduling issues, either on an institutional basis for a conference or both. Our 4 panelists today are Kevin Davis. Kevin is from Coastal Carolina University, where he's the Assistant AD for Media Relations, and his football team, where he is the contact, is ranked number 9 in the latest rankings. Go Chanticleers. John Paquette from the Big East. He's the Big East Conference Senior Associate Commissioner for Sports Media Relations, the 3rd Vice President of COSIDA, and a legend. He is a member of the COSIDA Hall of Fame class of 2019. Shelby Scott from Missouri Valley College in the NAIA. She's the Assistant SID at Missouri Valley. She's also the SID for the Heart of America Conference and an Assistant Women's Volleyball Coach at Missouri Valley. And Felicia Short from Queens in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she is the Assistant AD for Communications. Thanks to everybody for joining us today for what we hope will be a very helpful panel. And we're going to start with messaging. How are you planning your messaging, either in your conference or on your campus, and things that you think everybody should remember as they're going through this? John, how about, as our resident Hall of Famer, you lead us off?
Thank you, Ira. As far as our messaging goes, and we're talking about COVID, coordination to me is the key here, because at least from the conference office, all the stuff around COVID is involving postponements or cancellations. So we've had plenty of them, just like everybody has. And Ira, you know, your reference to the basketball games that you're going to work. To me, it's coordination and it's timing. Just last night, Sunday night, we changed a couple of games. So we needed 3 schools to cooperate or to help us make the announcements of games being postponed, games being added. So everybody has to be on the same page. We don't want the media to announce our postponements or our changes. So you put together short messaging, you make your announcement, everybody's on the same page, and hopefully it goes smoothly. Now, in terms of messaging with COVID, what we've done is we've very limited descriptions. We don't get into a lot of details. We'll say this game was canceled due to COVID issues within this particular program. We don't offer a lot of details. If the schools want to communicate and they want to offer more details, then they're free to do that. But from a conference office, and when multiple entities are involved, we try to keep it simple and try to be timely.
Kevin, what about you? Your program's going through right now its best season of all time. It's gotten a lot of national attention. You've already had a well-publicized postponement in your game against, I believe, Troy. How is your university handling the messaging during this time?
Well, John kind of nailed it in terms of its communication is key, not only with just your staff and your administration in the university, but also your teams that you're competing with. And the conference office is somebody that you can rely on with that. Particularly in our instance, when it was 2 conference teams, you know, you rely on them to kind of take the lead so that it comes from the conference first, and then as the schools work together to release it at the same time. And then also just more or less, it's more about just getting the message out quick and easy so that the media doesn't get it or social media doesn't take it and run with it. So it doesn't necessarily need a lot of details, but it's more or less just being effective in the timing and how you're able to present it to get it out quickly to the masses.
How quickly are you getting it out once you know there's going to be a postponement?
With us, it's once we know, we hear word from our athletic trainers and doctors that there might be one. We immediately talk to the opponent or the other team, let them know that whether it's on us or them, how it's going to go out and how quickly they can get it all in place. And then obviously you run it by the conference office to make sure you're all three on the same page. And as soon as it's good to go, you go out and with communication the way it is today with cell phones and social media and everything, everybody can kind of get on the same page pretty quickly.
Felicia, you're in the same portion of the country as Kevin. You with your basketball program on campus have already dealt with some postponement cancellation issues. Same question for you. How are you handling the messaging around everything happening on your campus?
Same thing John and Kevin have said. Everybody working together, communicating with each other. Definitely from once we get word from the athletic trainers as well. And it goes through our AD and the coaches and to the other school, and then the conference gets involved. We all just work together to get the communication out on the topic. So yeah, once we hear about it and get the communication out, I'm sorry. Once we hear about it and get the communication out, we all just work together, basically.
Now, Shelby, you're obviously wearing multiple hats here, being on campus and also at the conference office. So you have two different variables you have to think about. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, we've been right in line with everything else that's been said. When we first started, we came out and had announced we were moving forward with fall sports in early August. And our goal behind that was to be as transparent as we could be, but also making sure that we were relaying messages with positivity. And that's been something that we've tried to focus on as we've moved forward with discussing goals and moving things forward as schedules have changed. But it's just been a matter of from the top to the bottom, making sure that we can do what we can, the conference office to ADs to coaches, and ADs to SIDs, or however each institution works on that, doing what we can to make sure that the message gets relayed. And we've been, just like what everybody else has said, trying to coordinate it so that the information goes out from the institution level first before anybody else can get a hold of it.
So we'll transition to the next part of this discussion, and it's really about, and I think this goes a lot back to your rapport and having good positive rapport with your coaches. How are you addressing communication with your coaching staff so you know early in the process that there may be a chance for a change or in addition to the schedule? Kevin, we'll start with you on this one.
So what we've really realized this year is not just me, but my staff in general is to have that rapport with your coach, that they're the first person that you call when you hear a change or have a change, and that if they hear the same thing, you're the first person they call. So that's been a great way to help build our relationship, knowing that we have to rely on each other to make sure we're accurate in what we're going to be putting out, and make sure, for instance, we know what's going to be happening. I'm sure most people are aware that we had a game changed a few weeks back now with Liberty and having COVID issues, and we added BYU on a Thursday morning. College game day was here that weekend, so it was one of those things where we had to really work together to make sure we got on the same page, so that our coach was answering the right questions in the press conferences, and that the AD and coach and myself were all putting out the same message on how it occurred and why we made the decision we did. And it's just one of those things where it's, relying on each other is something that when times are changing, you have to adapt and adjust, and you need that person to be able to call you and trust that you'll call them when something arises.
Felicia, what are your thoughts on this?
I would definitely agree on having good relationships with your coaches so that you're in that communication chain. I would also say having good relationships with the athletic trainers is important. Good relationships with the other SIDs in the conference is important because, you know, sometimes everybody's working together to communicate, but sometimes some people just forget. And so if you have those good relationships with everybody, you're going to get that news from somebody when you need it. And I know I usually get hit by like 3 or 4 different people with the same news, and I'd rather get hit by 3 or 4 people with the same news than nobody. So those relationships are definitely important across the board.
Shelby, do you want to talk about the communication in this process when you're newer on a campus?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Valley was like coming back home. I came to Valley as a student athlete. My husband's coached here for a few years. So thankfully I was jumping into a position where I knew quite a few of the coaches here, but everybody's right on pace with what they've said. Building the relationships with the coaches, I'd say with the athletic directors on your campus or whoever your supervisors are too, has been a huge thing here. We, like, from the conference level down, we have weekly athletic director meetings on Mondays. We have a 22-member task force that meets weekly on Tuesdays. And so through those two, we've been able to kind of catch some of the things that we knew were coming up. If a team was having to go on a 2-week pause, or cancellations were happening, or an overhaul needed to happen when we went into our winter sports based on what we learned in the fall. And being able to sit in on those and have a seat at the table for those discussions has been something that's helped me be able to relay that information back out to SIDs. And it's been the same way on campus. Luckily here, I'm able to get some of the heads up. If it's a conference game, I know about it before it goes out, but it's just a constant line of consistent communication with everybody that's involved that's helped us move forward.
And you make a good point about seat at the table. And for SIDs who may not currently have a seat at the table on their campus, now is as good of a time as there ever has been to have that open conversation with your athletic director and your athletic leadership about the importance of having your communications person with a seat at the table. If there's ever been a time, it certainly is now. And John, we'll talk a little bit about how the conference is communicating with schools, both with scheduling changes and potential rescheduled events.
Well, we had one of the things that, I referred to, we've already had a bunch of scheduling, rescheduling. So I'm on my Word file, schedule change number 5 is what I'm up to now. So, and I'm sure the number is going to go higher. So the other, when I heard the rest of the panelists talk about this, timing can be tricky because the schools, anytime you have a postponement, you have at least 2 teams involved. So most times the administrators on those campuses say, we really don't want our players to find out from somebody else. We would like to tell them. But that's not always that practical because it can get tricky because team A may be practicing at 2:00 in the afternoon and team B is not getting together till later in the day. We're trying to coordinate a time so that at least we can announce it and the media doesn't announce it first. So the whole thing can be a little bit tricky with good intentions. It doesn't always work out perfectly, but that's obviously the goal. You want to try to be sensitive to all groups.
Now, this leads right into our next topic, which is the line of communication. What is the line of communication between the conference office and the athletic department on different changes? And I think, Shelby, since you're in such an interesting spot, kind of wearing 2 hats, it'd be great for you to start.
Yeah, so we touch base every Monday. We have all 14 of our athletic directors hop on a Zoom call every Monday, and we kind of go through with where everybody's at as of that day. If there's any red flags that are popping up, obviously from Monday to Wednesday, that stance may change, but we try to meet on a weekly basis to discuss if we need to go through and change things. And that's something that we learned into basketball season. We did a major overhaul of our conference schedule before it got started. I think we launched it the week before. So from there, it's schedule changes. Athletic directors work with the conference office The conference office works directly with the scheduler of the officials, and it kind of trickles down from there. Coaches working together, coaches working with SIDs, and it's just kind of like a streamlined process of here's who's going down. And we've learned a play when you're healthy mentality. And so you might not be playing team A on Wednesday. You might have to play team C because they're the only one healthy and open. And it's been kind of like pieces to the puzzle as we've went through to see who's able to play. But that's something that's taken the coordination of each member of our conference as the situations arise.
Felicia, what about you? I know obviously in Division II, not having the same number of eyeballs on a program that maybe Coastal Carolina is having right now with their historic football season, but people are certainly paying attention to the changes happening on campuses. How are you communicating? What's that line of communication?
With the conference office, it's definitely nothing's going out until it's verified through the conference office. Right now, the home teams have the ability to put out a press release if they choose to. It's definitely limited messaging like we talked about earlier. Nobody's putting out anything specific to anybody. But the changes are definitely on the fly. Like Shelby just said, you may be expecting to play one team tomorrow and find out they're not healthy, and you're looking around to see who else is healthy. I think one day we had an open night where we usually are playing a conference game, but there was only 4 healthy teams in the conference. So we still didn't get to play because the other 2 teams were playing each other and we were supposed to play the other team over the weekend. So we ended up with an open night where we couldn't fit anybody in. But those things just are happening, and you just have to be ready to roll with them at this point.
Kevin, what about you, especially with the changes that can occur at any given moment in a football season when you have so many student athletes that are being tested?
Yeah, it's one of those really add in the administration. If they're on the communication you have with them, I know especially at our level, it's our ADs that are working directly with the commissioner in terms of any type of changes and working together. And so it's important that they keep us communications people in the loop. I know that, ultimately they make the change, and we just are the ones that are supposed to communicate it out and get it out to the masses. And so it's important that not only do you have a good relationship with the conference communications, but also that the ADs and sports administrators are keeping you all in the loop, keeping their SID in the loop, because ultimately they're going to find out first and know what's going to be the change. So it always starts kind of like like with the conference, but then it spreads through you. So it's all about the chain of command and making sure, like you said earlier, that the seat at the table, that you're part of that, so you understand when the change is going to occur and what exactly it's going to be.
And John, of course, you being in the conference office, you're in the middle of the start of this with the basketball season, and you've seen changes. One right here in my own backyard with Seton Hall and St. John's, both having to play each other after their original opponents were unable to. You want to talk about how that communication is going between your office and the schools, and any advice you might have on that front?
Well, we've been doing a lot what Felicia was talking to. You're kind of mixing and matching. I think I said before the call, we just announced our January and February basketball season now. I mean, that's never happened before. And it's, as a hedge because we already have some games to make up. We're trying to play extra games in December as a hedge against January and February, but still, we didn't announce our schedule. So, until this week. So that's certainly, the start of something unusual. The other thing that, a conference like us, that when you reschedule a game too, not only do you have to have teams involved, you have to have venue available, you have to have officiating available. For us, when we certainly move a game, we want to have our TV partner, which is Fox Sports. We want to have them available to do the game. So it's just not, call school A, call school B, hey, can we get together at 3 o'clock? Sure. At least, we certainly try to have everything fall in place. I mean, you have to have officials, obviously, for a game. So I would say that a lot of times before we even talk about things, we need to get our officiating straight too, because I'm sure this is, true across the board. Officials just don't work your league. They also work other leagues. They're independent contractors, all that kind of stuff.
And that's a great point you made about officiating. It's actually going to lead really well into our next topic about staffing. But, officiating, you're seeing start times for games this year that you've never seen before ever. A 2 o'clock game on a Monday, a 4 o'clock game on a Thursday afternoon. Do any of our panelists kind of want to talk about, obviously this year by itself is going to be in somebody's memoir one day, but want to talk about just that adjustment to playing at unusual times?
I can start. I laugh because we literally tonight got a game scheduled for Monday, 2 p.m. Basketball. Never happens. But it's been interesting this semester for us because we don't have any students on campus, and students are a huge part of my staff. And so I've had to train a lot of people, some people on the fly, depending on what they're doing. We've been working a lot with scorers table for stat keeping, so that frees up some of us who normally do the stat keeping to have to do other things. We may be running the video board that day. We may be playing music. We may be on a camera for the live stream. We might be directing the live stream. We just don't know. So we all have to be ready for any and everything. And but we're also helping each other out in our conference. And so if we're playing, for example, Lenore Ryan one night and I have some open spots that I need filled, I feel confident that I can call their SIDs and see if they can make the trip to come help out if we have some spots that we need help with. And the same thing with many of the schools in our conference. We're just trying to help each other out to get it all done at the end of the day.
I mean, I think one of my worst fears ever as an SID was forgetting that there was a game. It's something that people have probably woken up in the middle of the night and with a nightmare thinking they forgot a basketball game or a softball game or something because of changes. So with staffing these events, sometimes on the fly, Felicia touched on it with a good example. How are you going about staffing when you have to scramble? Kevin, you're obviously dealing with a sport like football where there's a lot more moving pieces than some sports. How are you able to handle the staffing when you have to make these changes? Are you able to depend on SIDs from other schools or other department staff who might be able to help in a pinch? How are you managing this?
It's funny you asked that because we actually are in a pinch this week. We have the Sunbelt Championship game this week, which obviously wasn't expected, and then the Myrtle Beach Bowl was hosted at our place 2 days later. So we're reaching out to a number of community members that have helped us in the past. The other thing we've had is a lot of athletic administration people have kicked in and helped. We have our compliance director and business operations persons have been out temp checking, media members for games and have been selling tickets and doing whatever we need to do to help fill out. And then it's always great when you're able to call up a colleague and a friend and somebody else in the business, even if they're not in your conference, but they're regional and they don't have a game for some odd reason and they drive down and help out. So I've made a couple of favor calls into a number of colleagues and former people that I've worked with at other schools and they've been great. It's all about helping each other out, whether you're in the same conference or not, or just, anything that you can help out a fellow SID is something that I know that I always appreciate and I'm always willing to do. And that is huge when you're making adjustments on the fly and in our need of help.
Obviously, we're all going to owe people a bunch of drinks at the next COSIDA convention when hopefully that happens in 2021. But you're also dealing with people that, have priorities on their own campus. Have you had difficulty, with people not wanting to come cover games that was not involving their school because of the unpredictability of the environment?
We have not had that issue. We have experienced other schools not traveling SIDs for certain sports that we normally would. Especially in the basketballs now that they've started up. So it's one of those things as a league, we kind of get together. Like Shelby said, the Sunbelt Conference once a week, all the head SIDs get together and talk about how we can help each other out. It's one thing where we always have, for instance, if the SID is not there, the home SID will provide some photos for each team. They'll provide some type of video melt or video link. So that way they would have some footage of the game. And it's just all about helping each other out, because we know in times right now with staffs being, and budgets being depleted and cut across the board, that it's all about helping each other out so that we can help promote our schools and our teams the best way we can.
Shelby, how about you? How are you managing staffing challenges, especially, at a smaller school, NAIA? I worked my whole career in Division III. You know how many hats you have to wear on a game day. How are you managing just the nuances of this new normal of competing?
Yeah, we're really lucky in the conference. We've got a great group of SIDs that work really well together. Like during football season, I remotely sat at a football game for an SID that was on quarantine 400 miles away. So it's been good that we can just touch base. And if we've got something going on, we've got one right now that's working to try to outline scheduling in April, because the spring is going to get a little hectic. We've moved all of our postseason from the fall to the spring, and everything's kind of starting to stack up. So we just communicate with each other to try to see if we can get coverage when it comes to something sports information related, like stats specifically, or web streaming, that kind of stuff, because most of our institutions, they oversee all of that as the SIDs on their campuses. We've also had institutions in our conference that they're relying on coaches from other sports to help stat things, especially while we're over the holiday break. They've got a baseball coach doing shot clock, or they've got a volleyball coach doing the book, because they don't have any students that are on campus at this point. So it's just been a matter of seeing who's available to pitch in, and going around and figuring out if they are available, how can they plug into what you need.
Remotely statting a football game, something else we could all add on to the 2020 checklist of something we never thought we would do, but we have. Coordinating announcements, wording. I'll start with Felicia, but this really is for anybody, whether you're at the institutional level or the conference level. If you can give a couple tips on how you're wording the announcements about these constant changes.
For us, we've pretty much all taken the lead of our conference office. And like I said earlier, we're not putting too many details in a press release. We're basically saying COVID related issues is basically the gist of the statement as to why the games are being rescheduled. We don't really put out there whose team it was, as far as whether it was us or the team we were supposed to play. We just say the games are canceled due to COVID related issues at the end of the day. Like I said, we're all trying to work together. Nobody's trying to make anybody look bad at the end of the day. So we're all just trying to promote our schools in a good way. And so we want to keep everybody healthy, and we're just making sure everybody's safe. So when we put the messaging out there, we're just putting it out there to let people know that the games have been changed due to this, and we're being as transparent as we can about it.
What words are you using? Are you using postponed, canceled? Are you mentioning that
we are postponing ours for our conference games? If they're non-conference, they're getting canceled for the most part. But if they are conference games, we're postponing them for the time being and trying to get them rescheduled wherever we can.
Shelby, what about you?
Yeah, we're right in line with that. Back in the fall, we had more of the schedule changes kind of hit hard at the beginning of fall season starting. And I put together a release that was just a general outline from the conference office with a quote from our commissioner, and sent it to each of the individual institutions as a guideline. And they were able to spin it however they needed to fit their institution. And then it was just a matter of coordinating with the SIDs of the opposing schools, so they could try to, if the timeline would fit, release it at the same time or similar timelines. I know John had mentioned before, it's not always as easy, especially as you navigate class schedules and practice schedules, to make sure coaches can tell players before it goes out. But we tried to respect that as best as we could. And so we left it up to the institutions to promote it when it fit their timetables best.
John, from a conference standpoint, how are you wording?
As short and sweet as we can. Sweet's probably the wrong word. Due to COVID-related issues, we would love to do what Felicia's doing and not identify the team, but honestly, we can't, quote, get away with that. I mean, that's going to be, people are going to know, or then people are going to pursue it. So we're up. That's the way that we think we have to be upfront about it. So we'll say due to COVID-related issues within Team X program. And then if the schools want to go beyond that, or people ask us things like, well, how many people tested positive, and all those kinds of, those are institutional decisions. They can do what they want with that.
And obviously there's a lot that they can't reveal just because of HIPAA related requirements. So that clearly becomes a consideration. But, I think, John and Felicia both just talked about how, depending on the school or the conference, what's revealed can be very different depending on the needs and also the philosophy of each organization. Kevin, how about yourself though? You're dealing with a sport where you have, could be over 100 kids, could be one person tested positive, could be the entire offensive line, God forbid. How are you wording?
So we kind of as a conference agreed that we would be a little more detailed in terms of letting, kind of like John said, letting the team that was canceling or was having to postpone, they would kind of take the lead on how they wanted to word it, but that it would be a little more detailed in terms of it being the emphasis placed on one specific team that was having the issues. Mainly because there's so much more beyond that with the contact tracing and with the number of players that are impacted by that, and how many players you might lose. You might lose more than one game. You might lose two, and so the emphasis to put on to make sure we at least include the team that is impacted is something that our league decided that was important, because that way fans would know whether or not to expect another game from another team. Or if another team, in our instance, was to pick up a game that week, they would understand that it wasn't our team that was impacted by it.
That's a good point. And actually staying with you, Kevin, social media. How are you doing the social media updates? Obviously, that's where people are going to likely turn to information before they even go to the website. And then how are you handling the website updates so you're staying as current as quickly as possible?
Well, we try to do the social media at the same time as our website, so we're all on the same page. However, a lot of times that's not the case. If information leaks, then we try to use the social media as the outlet in terms of getting the correct information out, because usually if it leaks, it's on the social media is where it's getting out. Perfect example was with our change with Liberty and BYU. It was being reported we were playing BYU on a Wednesday night. The testing results were not even back from us or Liberty on by that time. So we got on social media to let people know that was not true. As of Wednesday night, when we put that out, we were still playing Liberty, pending the test that would come back on Thursday. So it's a way to try to stop the rumors from happening, but also inform people of when changes do occur. So that's what people look at first now. And the website is a secondary to that. So we try to do it at the same time. But sometimes it's more important that you get it out first on the social media, and then the website can follow up as another need to know or more information to come type area for people to look for.
Felicia, how are you handling both website updates and social during this time?
Like Kevin said, we also try to update both at the same time. We don't have too many issues with leaks happening. So we usually don't have to rush to the social media route, but we usually try to update both at the same time. We usually don't make any updates until we have heard from the conference office or that the change has been finalized, just because honestly, with so many cancellations happening, you may think that you got changed to play this team and then find out that that team's out. And so until we get that paperwork through email, we don't make a change at all. But yeah, we definitely try to change it at the same time so that it's going out together. But yeah, most people check it on the social media first, definitely, and then follow on to the website to see what's going on.
Are you divvying up the responsibilities to time it out so it can happen at the same time?
Yeah, we like to update both at the same time, honestly, and
You have help with
yeah,
that?
so yeah, I have my assistant actually handles most of social media posts when it comes to stuff like that. So we're usually pretty in good communication through texting each other back and forth about what's going out and what's getting changed. So we're usually pretty in sync about updating everything.
Shelby,
Ira, we have enough scheduling changes that we do have a scheduled change graphic.
that's another.
It made
Never
sense.
thought I mean, maybe during baseball and softball season, some years where you have massive rainouts, but that is certainly a first for sure, John.
Oh.
I was going to ask Shelby, with being, really wearing two hats here on campus, conference. What's been the priority? Is it different on the conference level than it is in terms of what gets updated than it is on the campus level?
I don't know that it's different, but I let the institutions lead it. So from an institutional level, we've got a small staff here. And so I'll be writing the article that goes out saying that we've got a postponement, publish it, change the website, and then go on to the conference Twitter and retweet it. And that's kind of been just, we try to keep it all in sync and lined up as best as we can when everything goes out.
So obviously this next portion of the question is near and dear to my heart now that I've moved into University Communications, and I always like to be communicated with, so I don't have any surprises. How are you communicating with University Communications, campus communications on your campus? So they're in the loop. Obviously, the messaging is more often than not going to come from athletics directly, but what tips do you have and reminders do you have for how you can work with your campus folks? Shelby, I start with you on this one, actually.
Yeah, I think the benefit for us here being so small is a lot of the people that we have in our streamline for communications all wear that hat. So our associate AD is the director of game ops. So when a schedule change comes through, he's already in the loop on it. The big thing here, I think, is when we've got major events, so homecoming, when we had to go through and cancel homecoming this year, was just working with the communications here on the university side of things and making sure that we were sending out a message that matched and that the timeline for releases works with what they've got going on, because they've got other things that they've got to promote and push out as well. So just a open stream of communications with them. They might not be in that room normally, but I think making sure that you're touching base with them, especially when big things are changing, has been a huge help to us.
Kevin, you're in a slightly different situation. I mean, obviously you guys aren't a BCS level school, but there's a lot of attention around your program right now, and you are a Division I shop. How has that cross communication worked with your campus university communication staff?
Well, they've become our best friends since about March of last year. It's one of those things with not just the COVID, but with the success we've had, news has become involved in a lot of wanting to know what is going on our campus and the athletic side. So we've worked hand in hand on a number of things in terms of, like Shelby said, to make sure we're on the same page. We're getting the same message out on the COVID front in terms of making sure we do not release any specific group. We're providing the keeping the rights of each, not only student, but student athlete, the HIPAA laws, and making sure we're not, putting anybody in the situation they need to be in. But at the same time, we've worked with them on a number of instances with the news wanting to cover us from a news side, and all the success we've had, whether it be through applications for admissions, as well as marketing and dollars that are coming in. And so it's one of those things that, I've picked up the phone a lot more the past couple of months to talk to them and make sure we're on the same page, and they've been great. And they're in the same boat as we are, like Shelby said. They're wearing many hats, and so they'll pick up the phone and ask us a number of questions as well. And working together has been great here at Coastal, and it's one of those things I think, as you know, Ira, if you have somebody that keeps you in the loop and you can trust to help you get your message out, and they can trust you, it makes your job a whole lot easier.
Absolutely. Felicia, what about at Queens? How are you handling it with your university communication folks?
As far as on the athletic side, we're all on the same page, but majority of the athletic messaging has been coming out from the athletic side. Our AD definitely keeps in close contact with the VP over our communications side of things. But not only that, I've worked over the years to build that relationship with folks in their office as well. And so we're all, whenever we need something from each other or need a favor, we're a phone call away or an email or a text. We definitely look out for each other and help each other out with messaging that we need to go out. But as far as the messaging on the athletic side of things, when dealing with what's going on currently, it's pretty much come out on the athletic side. Now, we've definitely taken a cue of what to put out from them. And they've definitely led and given us some of the messaging to go out, but it's definitely more so come out on our end, and they more so put out the university messaging, especially right now with us not having any students on campus. They're coming back next semester. So a lot of their focus has been on that and the messaging going out around that.
One other thing to factor into the game day experience is the facility. I mean, you have to constantly change what's happening in facilities and when, cleaning facilities, obviously making sure that the COVID testing and other protocol is being adhered to. You may want to touch on how they're communicating with their facilities and their IT and event people on your campuses right now to make sure that we're not having any cross-ups.
I remember we had a situation at Xavier this year where they had a basketball game at noon on a weekday. And someone in the TV truck got a positive test and found out when that person had already started working for the game. So Fox thought about it and decided that they weren't going to televise the game. They pulled the whole production. This was like an hour before tip-off. But what Xavier did, when what we all try to do and what we have to do is think on our feet a little bit. So they used some cameras, they streamed the game on for their fans. And so, no, the game wasn't on TV, but they were able to get the message out within an hour to their fans, and the Xavier fans could watch a stream of the game. So that's not your normal situation, I think, that, that people are running into, but it's, like something you don't anticipate, but you have to be ready for.
Especially having the equipment with them to be able to stream that quickly, because not everybody will have that available. Would that be advice that some of you guys may have, to have a backup plan for how you're going to handle one of these events, streaming, if there's supposed to be a streaming crew and they don't show up, TV crew doesn't show up because of COVID. Somebody has a stat computer and they were supposed to stat the game and they test positive, about how you can pivot quickly.
Yeah, I'll speak on that, Ira. We've learned to have a backup plan to a backup plan. We've learned to make sure that everybody has their own backup, and if not, it's one of those things where somebody else has to fill in, shift over and do another role, and that's something that we've kind of prided ourselves on this year, because knock on wood, we have not had any home events canceled because of COVID until this week. We just announced basketball will be out, but in terms of our staff and just be able to wear many hats, I've gone through and had to spray down some volleyballs before to help our operations guy out before a match, just to make sure everything was clean. And that's what we do to help to promote our student athletes and help make sure that it's the best experience for them and a safe experience for them.
Felicia, what about you?
I would echo that. Just being able to wear multiple hats and being ready to jump in wherever you're needed is definitely key today. And so a lot of people on our staff are wearing many hats and jumping in wherever they're needed right now so we can get our games going. That's at the end of the day, we're trying to allow our teams to get some games in and get on the court and play right now, or in the pool. We have our swim teams on campus right now with basketball. So we're just doing any and everything that we can as a staff to support them and help them win.
Is there anything that you're foregoing just because of limitations with staff and some of these constant changes and people being pulled in multiple directions? Is there anything, and this is really for anybody, something that, you know, just isn't going to be as much of a priority as something else given what we're going through?
Yes, we kind of went away from anything in terms of game day programs, like printing those, because that's something that if there's changes, you know, usually I think everybody can attest to this on this panel that you always try to work ahead. So if you're getting changes, you know, at the last minute, we've kind of gone away from game day programs. We've kind of gone away from media guides and just kind of doing record books, just anything like that that can kind of help save the time and to focus on the actual events taking place and how we can help promote those, especially now that most of us are, you know, short-staffed or budget reasons. You know, printing is not an option a lot of times. So it's one of the many things that you do. And I jokingly told my AD that my next contract should just literally say other duties assigned, and we should just roll with that. And that would be the most accurate thing that all of us have to do across the board.
Felicia, Shelby, anything on your campuses that you're eliminating, foregoing, not making as much of a priority right now with everything we're going through and the changes?
Yeah, we were right there with game day programs. We're not printing those. We didn't do schedule posters. We sometimes, like in terms of being short staffed, there's been some games where we've gone without a photographer, or we've got whoever's doing announcing doing another duty. So our head SID here for basketball games, he does stats and is the PA announcer with a referee's mic. So we've had some things where we've had to combine because we're a little short staffed, but the major things that we typically do have still been business as usual with a different person behind it, I guess you could say.
All right. How, and I think mental health is something that's important to talk about right now because we're all struggling, regardless of what hat you're wearing, you're struggling right now, some more than others. How are you keeping yourself focused and really, you know, motivated and even sane during this unprecedented time? It's hard on everybody. It's hard to stay organized. How are you managing? Felicia, we'll start with you first.
I would definitely say that it's been interesting. I know for a lot of us, it was hard not having athletic events going on for so long. We're so used to always being at our athletic events that when everything shut down back in March, a lot of us were sitting around like, okay, what do we do now? And then you didn't expect it to last this long. So a lot of us probably could be in a better place right now that athletic events are actually happening again. It's definitely different right now. It's not the same. You have to adjust, you have to adapt, you have to be ready to adjust, you have to be ready to adapt, because no day is the same at all right now, even more so than it was before when you said that, in the world that we work in. So, I mean, I think you kind of just, at this point, have to expect the unexpected, because if you expect things to go the way you plan them out, you may drive yourself a little crazy in this landscape. So, I mean, you can plan as much as you want to, or plan as much as you can, but when changes occur, you just gotta be ready to pivot. That's all you can do right now. And I try not to, me personally, try not to make anything too serious because there's so many things are changing. So I try to stay lighthearted and I try to just keep a positive outlook on everything. And that would be my advice. Just try to stay positive in everything that's going on. Try to work with grace with everybody. Expect that everybody's, coming from a good place, because we're all in this together and we're all over the place, really. So just know that nobody is out to be rude or out to do this or out to do that when they're coming at you for help. It's just an interesting landscape. So you just kind of have to roll with it.
Kevin, how are you staying focused and keeping yourself just mentally sharp during incredibly challenging circumstances?
Well, I try to stay mentally sharp. Sometimes we don't get, there's moments where we're not there, but I mean, it helps to have a good administration that understands what all we're going through on a regular basis. So that's been great. Coaches that understand, hey, there's priorities for some things going on, particularly in sports stuff. And we know that you're there for us if we really need you, but don't sweat the small things. We'll be fine over here. It helps to have a good wife at home that understands that you're going to have many long hours and be gone a good amount now. But I think it all comes down to why we do this is for the student athletes. And if I'm having a tough day or, a change just changes everything I've done for that week, you go talk to a student athlete about why they want to play and how much they're enjoying playing and why they feel like they need to be playing instead of, not playing. And it just makes it worthwhile and lets you know that, hey, what you're doing is for a good cause and it's for them. And it kind of brings you back to why you're in this to begin with. And we all got in it because we love sports and love student athletes. And so sometimes you just need a reminder of that. And every now and then it's good to just go over and talk to a student athlete about it. So I think that'd be my advice is just remember why we're doing it, and it does get long hours and we do a lot of work. Like Felicia said, it's a lot of stuff that, we're all in this together. So just helping each other out and remembering why we do what we do.
A hug from your husband or wife, if you have one, or your significant other, probably good right now, especially since that's probably the only person you can hug right now. But Shelby, you wearing multiple hats, how are you keeping yourself just sharp and motivated and not going crazy?
I think so, along with what Kevin was saying, like I try to remind myself on hard days, what was it that I missed for the 5 months where we didn't have anything going on, or the 6 months, because it was always, I wanted to be able to do my job. Like that's something that I wanted to be able to do. So when those hard days start to come, or basketball season's always hard because my husband's a coach. And so it's a lot of hours where I might not have a home event, but that means that he's on the road somewhere. So just trying to remember like what it is about this job that you love. Most people get in this, they try to make it a career, and there's a reason behind it. And so I try to focus on that. And then I feel like a lot of people get in here with type A personalities and they want to be able to like plan. And so it's been a good learning process of being able to truly be flexible. I think people like to think that they are, but then when your schedule changes 3 times in a week and you freak out, you're maybe not as flexible as you thought you were. So just trying to let go of, you're not going to be able to control everything. You're not going to be able to control the schedule or what's going on, and controlling what you can and being flexible and going with the flow on what you can't have all been big things to like help us move through the fall.
That's great advice. Control what you can control. John, you're the veteran here. You've seen a lot over your Hall of Fame career. What would your advice be for some of the newer members of COSIDA who clearly have never seen, not that any of us ever had seen a pandemic like this before, but who have really maybe are dealing with adversity like this for the first time? What would be your advice as a veteran?
My advice is hopeful advice that this is the only time this is ever going to happen. I mean, this is not even close to anything we've dealt with, certainly in my time, which is, I think, longer than the times of anybody on this panel. And so, it's going to get better. Now, that doesn't mean it's not hard. And I don't go to a campus like, the school people do. And so our offices are in Midtown Manhattan. We haven't been back yet. So I'm still working out of my house. I've been in a couple times to quote, get some things. So it's hard. I don't like not having the choice. Mentally, it is difficult. My outlook on the day is usually reflected on how many Zoom calls I have scheduled for that day. I know that's the way we have to do business, but it's not that efficient. I miss walking down the hall and talking to somebody and, and solving a problem in 3 minutes instead of setting up a Zoom call. But, we just stay at it, and we do what we need to do to get it done. And, whether we have 3 things on our plate for a day or 20 things. And I think a lot of people, at least on our board calls, have mentioned Steve Kirshner's tweets when he listed 1 million things, and he said, you want 1 million things done? Well, you talk to an SID because they get it done. So, these are trying times, but we're going to plow forward and we're going to get through it. And to me, there is no other answer. There is no other, there is no alternative. We're just going to work hard and we're going to get through and things are going to get better.
This leads to our final question of our webinar, and it's about what you've learned through this time, the lessons learned, your takeaways, perhaps how this has made you better at crisis planning and crisis communications. John, I'll start with you.
The uniqueness of this whole thing is testing all of us. In some ways, every day is crisis communication, unlike normal times. I think I've learned to have relationships or strengthen relationships through, through Zoom and through the telephone. I talk to my staff, obviously, all the time on the phone. You do develop a little bit of a different skill set in talking to people and dealing with people and texting and calling. And I do try to make it a little bit more of a concerted effort to call people on the phone instead of texting them, because I want to hear voices and I think that's important. So maybe a little bit more of an emphasis on that. You learn how to connect in different ways. None of us knew what Zoom was a year ago, and now we've kind of figured that stuff out. So I would say try to use what's out there that we have and be better at it.
We all knew what Zoom was a year ago. We'd be very wealthy right now because we don't know a lot of stock. Felicia, your thoughts on what the outcome of this, the lessons learned, and how everybody can be better.
I think one important lesson to learn is what's truly important when it comes down to things. We all may have thought or had things in top of our mind before this happened, and it's definitely given us a reset button for all of us. So I think definitely learning to control what you can control, and just realize what's truly important. And I think a lot of us have learned more about our staff members and our colleagues that we work with that we may not have learned before. And it's allowed relationships to change, and they're not so transactional anymore as they may have been before. And I think that's a good thing that has come out of this, honestly. So
that's awesome advice. Thank you. Shelby, your final takeaways, lessons learned.
I think my biggest lesson so far has been learning to be comfortable living in the gray. If anything has been more, I don't know the right wording for it, but things haven't been black and white since March. There hasn't been a yes or a no answer to a lot of things when it comes to athletics or scheduling, or if you're coming back, or if we're doing things business as usual or not. And I think the same goes with all of the schedule changes and last minute cancellations and issues, and going through and prioritizing our list of things to do, is that you have to be okay living in the gray and being flexible. That's been the thing that saved us moving forward, just athletically from fall to winter, is being okay knowing that something that maybe didn't work in the fall might work in the winter, or vice versa, but there's not a solid yes or no on a lot of things right now, and you just have to be okay and navigate that.
Kevin, the last word on this is yours.
You know, we've had two mottos here, not just in our football team, but also in our office. I've kind of is basically to adjust and adapt to whatever it is that may be coming on. You know, you got to be willing to adjust and then make that change, because it's probably going to be like that from there on out, and there's nothing you can do about it. And like Shelby said earlier, control what you can control. I've quickly learned that a lot of things are out of our control in this area. Usually you're able to control kind of the message you're getting out, and you know, control who's going to be working what games, and how that, you know, how the message is going to be out. But that's something that has changed drastically these last 6 months in this season. And then also just to remember that, you know, you can always learn. You're always learning something new. You know, like John said, whether it's a Zoom call, whether it's learning something new about your staff, like Felicia said, and more importantly, just always learning something new to continue to grow. And that's another way to keep your mind sharp and continue to help not only your university, but this profession grow as we move forward.
Thank you, Kevin. And definitely want to thank our 4 panels today: Kevin Davis, John Paquette, Shelby Scott, and Felicia Short, for their insights, and what they hopefully the information they provided today will be helpful to Arcosida members as they try to navigate what is truly a hectic time that nobody's ever dealt with before, potentially having 3 seasons overlapping at the same time in the coming months, and just the unpredictability of the schedule on a daily basis. We wish everyone a lot of luck as they do navigate this new scheduling situation that we're in. We wish everybody happy holidays, and we really thank everyone at COSADA for bringing this continuing education, this professional development and education committee webinar to you. Once again, I do want to thank our title partner for this, our corporate partners at Capital One, for their continued investment in our membership as the sponsor of the educational webinar series here. That's it for today. There'll be more professional development and education committee webinars on the schedule, so please check back on COSADA.com to see what's on the schedule in the coming days and weeks. Happy holidays, everyone, and good luck and stay healthy. Be well.